ॐ स्थापकाय च धर्मस्य सर्वधर्मस्वरूपिणे अवतारवरिष्ठाय रामकृष्णाय ते नमः। वसुदेवसुतं देवं कंसचाणूरमर्दनम् देवकी परमानन्दम् कृष्णं वन्दे जगद्गुरुम्। So we are almost in the last portion of the second chapter of Shrimad Bhagavad Gita. We have studied till the 69th verse, and there are 3 more verses remaining, the 70, the 71st, and the 72nd. So before we proceed to the last 3 verses, we will have a synopsis of the entire second chapter and then conclude with the study of those last 3 verses. So if we try to just recollect, we will find that in the last verse of the first chapter, it was mentioned that Arjuna has cast aside his bow and arrows and he sank into the seat of his chariot. His mind was fully distressed and overwhelmed with grief. And the second chapter, we find it starts that seeing Arjuna overwhelmed with this grief, with piety, his mind been totally grief-stricken, and his eyes full of tears, Asrupurna Kulekshanam. Akula means the eyes, the complete eyes from one end to the another end. Akula. Asrupurna Kulekshanam. So it is full of tears. The eyes are full of tears. So seeing Arjuna such overwhelmed, Sri Krishna tried to rouse his spirit. And what he said, just like a great teacher, instead of admonishing him, instead of rebuking him, he's saying something wonderful. What he's saying? That such faint-heartedness is not befitting for an honorable person like you. We will find that this small, the way of speech speaks a lot. When the parents, for some reason, has to admonish the child, has to scold the child has done some silly act, and the parent will lose their temper and may say, "You are stupid." But it's a false statement. The child is not stupid. He has just done a stupid act. He has or she has the potentiality to be really something great. He has that intelligence, he has that diligence. So just for a single stupid act, if you say you are stupid, it's a false statement. Because that person is not going to be stupid eternally. He was neither stupid previously, nor he's going to. He's the soul with chances of infinite manifestation, potentiality. So instead of saying you're stupid, the same thing could have been told in a different way. I have such a great opinion about you. You're such a great child. I never thought that you can do such a silly act. So that shows the same thing. Instead of admonishing him by as if through eternal damnation, that you are going to as if be a stupid through eternity, we are just pointing out to the potentiality that person has to manifest that potentiality. So that same thing at the very beginning of the second chapter, Sri Krishna has done. What he's saying? That he saying that it doesn't befit you to yield to the unmanliness, that you are such an honorable person. You are great. So in the very third sloka, the third verse, what he's saying? Klaivyam masma gamah partha na etat tayu upapadyate na taitatya naitatya upapadyate kshudram hridaya daurvalyam tyakto tishtha parantapa. So this faint-heartedness doesn't befit you. So relinquish this kshudrang hridaya daurvalyam, this petty faint-heartedness. Relinquish. Tyaktya, relinquish. Arise. Uttishta parantapa. As we find in the Kathopanishad, that it's the same way the Upanishad is trying to arouse our conscience by saying Uttishtata, Jagrata, Prapya Varan Nivodhata, Kshurasya Dhara, Nishita Duratyaya, Durgam Pathastvat, Kavayo Vadanti. That why the Upanishad is asking us to arise and awake, knowing very well the path is not easy. Kshurasya Dhara, it's a very, very difficult path. Just like walking on the edge of a razor. It is that sharp. There's a chance of pitfall, of falling. But still the Upanishad is saying, arise, awake, and stop not. Follow the guidelines of the ones who have succeeded and proceed. Why they're saying that? Yes, they're accepting the fact that life do have challenges. Sometimes it can be really very, very great, but know it for certain, we as the human being have the capacity to transcend that. When this Edmund Hillary for the first time attempted to climb the Mount Everest, he failed. Because of the terrible, extreme bad weather, almost he reached the peak, but he had to come down. He couldn't reach. And then in a gathering, when he was addressing about his adventure to the Himalayas, he told that I couldn't reach the top of the Everest. I had to come down. I was almost near because of the extreme bad weather. He has to come down. But pointing to the Mount Everest, he said a very interesting thing. He told us, but if not today, tomorrow I'm going to conquer you. And then what he said is very interesting, because he said that your height is fixed. You are not going to increase, but my capacity, I have the capacity to transcend all my limitations. I can exceed, I can excel. There is no limitation to my achievement. So today I have failed, tomorrow I will succeed. So as a human being, we have that capacity. However difficult the situation may be, we should always assert the inner strength which we had. We should never be faint-hearted. Why not faint-hearted? Because it is not that there is no way out. It is difficult, but not impossible. Sometimes we equate difficulty with impossibility. That difficulty doesn't mean impossible, it is difficult. No one is denying the fact that this life with its crisis is a difficult path to traverse. But it is not impossible. So never be faint-hearted. Assert the strength which you have at the core of your being. So with that, that's why Swami Vivekananda used to say, if you ask me that what is the greatest sloka of Bhagavad Gita, he used to quote this at the very beginning, this Klaivyam Masmagama Partha. Na etatvayupapadyate kshudram hridaya daurvalyam tyakta uttishta parantapa. So as when we were taking this, we were just discussing this sloka at the very beginning of this chapter. We referred to that fear, the word fear, as an acronym. In our life, to be scared with the insurmountable obstacles which we sometimes have to face. That fear is something inevitable, it comes. But what should be our attitude with that fear? So that we can forget everything and run, That's what most of us do. And to really manifest the inner potentiality, then what we have to do, that's not the way. We have to face everything and rise. F-E-A-R. Face. Stop. Face the brutes. When Swami Vivekananda was in Kashi, Banaras, as a wandering monk, he was chased by a pack of monkeys and he was running and the monkeys were almost at his heels. He never knew what to do. And an old monk shouted at him, "Stop, face the brutes." He stopped, he turned around, and he was astonished to see the monkeys also stopped. He stared at the monkeys stared back at him, but they were not proceeding anymore. For some time, both were staring at each other, and then the monkeys started receding. They were running away. And Swami Vivekananda, after that, has mentioned a very wonderful thing, that I have learned the lesson of life. What is the lesson of life? Stop, face the brutes, never run away from it. Face the challenges, you will find they are vanishing in no time. And that's what the words we find in the words of Sri Krishna in the very third sloka. And then from the 4th to the 10th sloka, we find that Arjuna is still under that confusion. He knows that he has that strength. It is not that fear of losing the war that is forcing him to retreat. He's quite capable. He knows that he has the strength, the capability to win the war. But it is his emotion that is overwhelming. Because when he sees on the opponents, in the opposite side, his own relatives, his own teacher, that makes him faint-hearted. And now this confusion that he doesn't know what to do. Though that the battle is a righteous war for Arjuna, because they have been exploited. And sometimes in this world, the only way to overcome the exploitation, to get the justice, the war becomes inevitable. War is always the thing which we should avoid. But there are situations where war too become inevitable. There's no way out. And it is one of the such situation. So Arjuna is bit confused that this inevitable war which he is justified to fight, but when he's facing the enemy, he knew very well. Sometimes to intellectually conceive one thing, to intellectually conceive a thing is one thing, and then to face it is something different. So when you find your blood relations, then there's a tremendous struggle between your head and your heart. And that's the state of confusion in which Arjuna is going through. There's a fight between the head and the heart. The head is saying, his intellect is saying that the war is justified, but the heart is full of emotions for the ones whom he sees in the opposite side. That is weakening him, draining him. So he states that the Bhishma and the Dronacharya, they are worthy of his respect, of adoration. They are his gurus, they are his teachers. There is the elders, the seniors. It's not that he lacks courage. He's prepared to fight. It is but from the perspective of the moral duty, he feels his duty was to respect the teachers and to show compassion to the relatives, he's the sons of Dhritarashtra. So that's the confusion through which he's going through. And then that faint-heartedness again comes back. What he says, that it is better to leave the world, live in this world by begging. It is better to beg than to enjoy life by killing your own respectable elders, your teachers, your own relatives. It is just like enjoying the wealth and pleasures of life which is tainted with the blood of your own kith and kin. How can I do that? But Though he is saying that, but within his heart, he knows that he himself has came to this battlefield knowing it very well. This war was inevitable and it was justified. So at last we find that Arjuna is completely surrendering to Sri Krishna. That now please direct me, I don't know what to do. And what he says is very again interesting. Karpanya dosha. It is in the 7th verse. Karpanya dosha upahata swabhava. Upahata. My swabhava. I am a kshatriya. I am a warrior. I do have the strength to take care of this present situation and overcome it. I have that might, that strength. But the swabhava of a kshatriya has become upahata, has been totally subdued because of karpanya dosha, kripanata. Karpanya dosha means it's miserliness. What's the miserliness? That when you have wealth, but you do not want to spend it even for useful purposes, for productive purposes, that wealth has no use. That speaks of kripanata. So here Arjuna has the strength, the valor to face this situation, to overcome it. But here that kripanata is prevailing because of the faint-heartedness. Something is not allowing to realize that potentiality. So that's why these words are so significant. Karpanya dosha. This kripanata I'm being assailed by that. My swabhava, that strength, the valor, which is something natural to me, is my swabhava, being a kshatriya, that has got subdued because of this kripanata. So in this situation, I'm really confused. So now he's saying, Prichhami twam dharma sangmudha cheta. That I am dharma sangmudha. What to do, what not to do. I'm in the crossroads of life, where the two ways are there. Which to follow, I don't know. So that is the dharma sangmudha. I am totally confused. But here we find, when we surrender to the divine, this same situation, which speaks of distress, which speaks of anguish, which speaks of crisis, that becomes a blessing in disguise. Because instead of just totally getting cocooned in your own problem, you have the strength to totally open yourself up and look up to the divine for the help. That you take the crisis as an opportunity, that humans' adversity is God's opportunity. Our adversity is God's opportunity. If we can just open up to the divine, God is just waiting for that. When everything is fine, we forget that after this life is a flow. It's not going to be as it is. The golden moments of life, we get so infatuated by it, we forget that it is going to pass. We get totally involved in it. And we forget that our eternal relationship is not with this temporary golden, the glisters, the little glisters which are flowing, with which I am so involved, it will just simply pass off. My eternal relationship is with the Paramatma. It makes all these glitters makes me forget for the time being. So the Lord is waiting when that passes off, and he turns around and looks at me. And that speaks of that dharma sangmudha cheta. All these golden moments of life makes us forget the essence, the real thing, for which this human birth is, to go back to the source, to be again one with the divine, to enjoy that eternal companionship with the divine. All these temporary glitters makes us forget. So our adversity is the God's opportunity. So that's when we are dharma sangmudha cheta. We don't know what to do. And then we look up to the divine. You will find all the so-called masterpieces in the spiritual literature starts with this state of distress, crisis. You read the Bhagavatam, You read the Chandi, you read Bhagavad Gita, even the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna. It's when someone is in crisis, they don't know what to do. They think all the path is going to end up in a precipice. One step further, you just fall in a deep abyss. And then you look up, and then you find there is a way which I was not aware of. And then the divine finds it's an opportunity to open up the portal of the spiritual world, which is the realm in which we can experience the eternity, which is the core of our being, the eternal bliss, eternal happiness. In that, we can again get established. It's not that it was not there, it was there, but we were forgetful about it. It is always with us. It's not something we have to attain, but we are forgetful about it. The so-called the golden glisters, passing glisters of life, make us forget of that. So we just turn around, and that portal, spiritual portal, opens up. For that, we have to surrender to the divine. And that's the thing that makes Arjuna, the one who was totally depressed, to come out of that situation and face the life with the courage. And that spirituality is not meant to hide ourselves, to cocoon ourselves from the problems of life. It's not a retreat. It's the way to gather strength. Even if it's a retreat, it's not to run away, to gather the strength. With that strength, again, to face the life. To face the life with that renewed strength is the be-all and end-all of spirituality. And the Bhagavad Gita is the scripture that teaches that. So now we find, as Arjuna has opened up himself, he is speaking of his confusion. Now Sri Krishna finds it's an opportunity to open up the spiritual portal for Arjuna, who was suffering from this inescapable trauma. So when you're in inescapable trauma, we find that all the paths have closed for us. That's the time when we need the awareness of the fact that actually not all the paths have been closed. We were only relating to some dimensions of existence where we cannot get the answer. There are some other dimensions. Once we relate to that, all the problem is solved. Just when I think this life to be the be-all and end-all of existence, and when I find the problems of life is totally submerging me, deluging me as if, and then I think there is no way out. And then suddenly a new portal opens up, of which I was not aware at all. And then find all problems are not there at all. If the problems are just temporary, it is just local. That when in this life, we take this life as the be-all and end-all of existence, then we find that at certain time, we know that death is waiting for us. Old age, disease, death, all these things are waiting for us. The nature gave us in bounty at certain point of time. And we took it for granted as if it is going to be with us through eternity. And then the same nature, after some time, is going to take away everything from you. Our youth, our beauty, our wealth, our relationships, all are going to fall apart. Nature gives in bounty and takes away again. And then we just start crying. And that's the time, if somehow our awareness of the spiritual dimension of existence opens up, then we find that the things which we thought to be a permanent problem, to have pervaded my entire life, is actually temporary. It's just a flow. Nothing could affect the core of my being, which is eternal, which is always in union with the divine. Nothing can affect that. So all the problems which I thought to be permanent, they become temporary. All that which was pervading as if my entire existence becomes local. It's just a small problem for the time being. It can in no way affect the real me. That's what we find every day in the evening Aratrikam when we sing Khandana Bhavandana. A line almost at the end comes. Shampada tava Sripada Bhava Goshpada Vari Jatha. That your feet, O Lord, your feet is the treasure. Why it is the treasure of my heart? Sampada means treasure. Tava Sripada, your lotus feet is Sampada, is the treasure of my heart. Why? Bhava Goshpada Vari Jatha. Because the ocean, which was something insurmountable, I thought I cannot cross it. There's no end was visible. The moment I find the presence of your lotus feet in my heart, that unsurmountable, this ocean, it becomes just like the hoof of a cow. When the cow is moving, when the cow is just grazing over the field, its hoof's mark is on the soft soil. And when there's a downpour, there's a rain, those hoof marks gets filled with water. And even a frog can jump over it. It's such a small, body of water, just as hoof mark of the cow. Even a frog can jump over it. So Swami Vivekananda, how beautifully has composed that line, that when I feel the presence of your lotus feet in my heart, that ocean which I thought which I cannot cross, is such a huge, vast ocean with all the problems of life. It becomes just like the hoof mark of a cow. It's so small. It becomes Goshpada. Goshpada means that the hoof of a cow. Go is the cow. Pada means his feet. The hoof of the cow is the Goshpada. And the Vari Jatha, that if the hoof of the footprint of a cow, that how much water it can hold, it's very little. So that ocean becomes that much. So that's the thing Sri Krishna is now doing. He takes this as an opportunity. His human's adversity becomes God's opportunity. So Sri Krishna realizing that the deep-seated delusion and grief of Arjuna, it cannot be removed without the knowledge of that spiritual reality. So at the very beginning, at the very inception, what he does, first, he immediately starts his discourse on the immortality of the soul. He starts flooding him with that instruction. It's like a flood, it comes from Krishna. He's just flooding Arjuna in it with the discourse of the immortality of the soul. So many, from 11 to 30, almost these 30 slokas speaks of that immortality of the soul. The cause of the Arjuna's grief is the lack of discrimination between the body and the soul. The body perishes, but the soul will exist in all the three phases of time: past, present, future. It was, it is, it will be. It is called Trikal Avadhita Satya. Trikal, past, present, future. These are the three phases of time. The truth is that which exists in the three phases of time without any interruption. Avadhita, without interruption. So that truth, which speaks of the core of our being, which is the soul, when we cannot discriminate it with our psychophysical existence, then all the suffering, the grief comes into picture. So as Arjuna has confused this too, so Krishna starts preaching him about the existence of soul, which is contrary to the existence of this body, which is limited. In the 18th sloka, we find what he's saying, Antavanta ime deha. This body is going to end. Nityasya ukta sharirina. The sharira is perishable, but the shariri, the one who resides in this body, he is nitya. There is no end to him. There was no beginning, there is no end. Anashina aprameyasya. It cannot be you cannot destroy it, and you cannot ascertain it with your so-called sensual knowledge. It is beyond that. It is the core of your being. You can experience it, but you cannot in any way describe it. Just when an unmarried girl asks her friend, another girl who is already married and who has children, and she asks that, what's it? What is the feeling you have when you have a child, a baby? The mother says it's some undescribable happiness. But you try to describe, but I cannot. I can experience it. To understand that, you have to become the mother. You have to become the mother, then only you will understand it. So in this life, even with all such emotions like the motherly love, we can find that what it is experienceable, but you cannot describe it. So that's what is being meant by the word aprameya. This, the eternal existence that can be experienced. It cannot be described, but once you experience it, there is no way anything in this world can disturb you. You get identified with that. So that aprameya atma, to realize that, once you realize that should be the goal of your life. And once you realize that, then the so-called things which is baffling you, disturbing you, they exist. It's not that they vanish. In the physical plane, the death, the decay, the disease, the war, everything remains. It was, it is, it will be in the future. In the physical plane is like that. That's what the physical world is. However we may try to reform the physical existence, it's not going to be. That's the nature of the physical world. In the words of Ramakrishna, it is like the dog's curly tail. You can never straighten it. It is like that. And if there is any purpose of the divine to make the world like a dog's curly tail, is only because that world is not intended for our pleasure. We are deluded again and again by thinking this world is a pleasure ground. It's not the pleasure ground. In the words of Swami Vivekananda, it is a gymnasium where we have came to make ourselves strong. The world has intended to be curly so that in our attempt to straighten it, we ourselves get straightened. Just in the way you go to the gym, can you straighten the springs, that strong springs which has been kept there? You can never. But why they have kept there? By working against them, we get the strength. The spring remains that curled spring only. We work against it again and again so that we gain the strength. So the world remains curly, like the dog's curly tail. It never gets straightened. By working against it, we gather the strength. So that's the thing Bhagavan is indicating, that this world is there as an opportunity. Don't take it as a pleasure garden. It is a gymnasium. Through all these turmoils you have to pass through, so that you get established in yourself. You gather that strength and you get established in yourself. So don't take this spiritual life as a mood to go to your security zone, to your comfort zone. That's what most of us are doing. That whenever we find that life's challenges are there, a fake renunciation comes. Oh, fed up with this life. I'm no more attached to it. I want to just get, I just want to have a retreat from it. We profess as if we are a detached soul, but it is actually we are trying to run away into the comfort zone, into the security zone. So that's not spirituality meant for. It is to gather the strength, to take that as an opportunity to transcend it, not to run away from it. And even if we are not established in the self, then also you know that there is no decay for you. Even you have to continue with this, what you say, this body after body. That's the thing Bhagavan is saying. What? That in the 22nd sloka, that there is no end. Even when we are killed, there is no end as such. Even from the physical plane of existence is concerned, there is no end. From the spirit is eternal. Even from the physical plane of existence, there is no end till you go to that spiritual realization. How? Because we continue. In different bodies, we transmigrate. The death entails transmigration of the soul into another body. It doesn't mean an end, which again Arjuna expounds with an illustration. What he says in the 22nd sloka, Vasangsi jirnani yatha vihaya, navani grinhati naroparani, tatha sharirani vihaya jirnan, anyani sangyati navani dehi. Just the way when our clothes get old, torn, we reject them and we again will be wearing the new clothes. We will buy the new clothes and we'll be wearing them. Similarly, because of the decay and the death, when we have to reject this body, it is just like the worn out cloth. And we again take a new body. The new body is like the new cloth. So similar, this just the way we relinquish the torn out old clothes and wear the new ones. Similarly, we are transmigrating from body to body. So there is no death as such, even in the physical plane of existence. The one for whom you are lamenting, they in no way, there is no end for them. So that's how we find Bhagavan at the very beginning is trying to shift his awareness from this mere physical plane of existence to the core of each and every being, which is the soul, the one undivided, non-dual self, which is the core of the existence of the entire universe. He's trying to shift his attention to that, trying to help him to identify with the core of his existence so that the grief is assuaged to a certain extent. And then from 31st to the 37th sloka, Sri Krishna will be citing some other reasons also. That if you find it is too much to relate to the self and transcend the suffering of life, there are other reasons, other standpoints also for which your grief is improper. What are the other reasons? The first he's saying that Swadharma. Swadharma, that as a warrior, as a soldier, that it is your duty to fight. And that also you're fighting for a righteous reason. So from the Swadharma, from the point of view of your Swadharma, it's not something which has been imposed on me. As per my temperament, as per my nature, with which I am born, because of the past inherent tendencies, I have entered into a particular profession of life. It is those tendencies which I cannot simply get rid of. They are the things which define me. Even if I relinquish the war, I myself will be repenting because something within me will be saying, because my nature is to, stand for a righteous cause. Something within will be saying me that you have not the right thing. At the spur of the moment, in our life, constantly it happens. We all have a defined nature. The challenges of life sometimes forces us to act contrary to our nature. It forces. A teacher, just like a teacher, he has that natural, that inclination to teach. Taking classes, teaching students, by that he or she is quite happy, quite at ease, because that has become the part of his life. And then suddenly the school environment starts challenging him. He finds it's difficult. He is most probably the school where it's very difficult to deal with the students, or he or she has come in some confrontation with the colleagues, with the administration, and relinquishes the job. No more. Let me try for another job, some other job. And now there he finds that he cannot cope up with that other type of job. Why? Because his nature already this, because as most probably he or she was for last 10 years or 20 years teaching, that has defined his character, that has become his nature. The other job he finds as if it is like a fish out of waters. He cannot find himself very comfortable with that. So here Bhagavan is saying your Swadharma is Kshatriya. From your very birth you have been what you say, that trained that way. Your motivation, your skills, everything is oriented to be a warrior. And suddenly you say, I relinquish everything and will live the life of a renunciate. Within a few days, you will find you are like a fish out of waters. So from the point of view of the Swadharma, don't try to run away from the challenges of life by thinking that this is not for you. This is the thing which defines you. What will you do without that? So that's what Krishna is saying as the other reason. Swadharmam api chaveksha na vikampitum arhasi dharmyadhi yudhya sreyonyach kshatriyasya ravidyate. That to have this opportunity to fight for a righteous cause, what can be more glorifying than that for a kshatriya, for a warrior? Even it's in the present, it's today, that it's true even today. The army, the navy, the air force, they're idling their time. They sometimes we feel that so much resources wasted. So they also feel that when a war comes for a righteous reason, they feel that it's an opportunity, that what I was doing, just I was leading a lazy life as such. They were always prepared for the war, but the so-called war never came. And that gives them to certain extent a sense of meaninglessness, that what for I am. And suddenly an opportunity for this war comes. It is not something that war is always we have to avoid. But the way of life is such that there are some situations where war is there and you find that it is justified. And there you find that all the skills which you have developed, all the orientations which you have developed, that is going to find some expression. And you now start feeling meaning in life. So that's the idea of Swadharma. So from the point of Swadharma also, that what can be a greater opportunity than to have this Dharma Yudhya, where you can really express your Swabhava, your nature, the way you have been built up through that. And it also is a way to spirituality, because Dharma Yudhya is such where you are even ready to relinquish your life for an ideal. Now, the entire gamut of spirituality is what? There are so many ways to efface our ego. Once the ego is effaced, immediately we get established in our spiritual essence. It is the ego that is not allowing us to get established in a spiritual essence. That's as Sri Ramakrishna used to say very nicely. When someone is to ask him, when shall I be free? His answer used to be, when I, that I is within the inverted comma, cease to be. That limited sense of this individuality, this ego, this ahankara, that's the cause of our bondage. That localized consciousness, the consciousness which is non-local, the sun in the sky, when it gets reflected in the waves of the ocean, each and every wave has the reflection of the sun. The one sun appears as many, and it appears to be as if limited. If you see the reflection, it is as if limited within the wave. But is it really limited in the wave? No. As long as I'm identified with the reflection, I feel I'm limited with the wave and I'm separate from other waves. But the moment I look up to the sun, it's the same sun. So that's why the relinquishment of the ego, that our identity with that reflected sun, the reflected awareness, once we get rid of it, immediately we get aware of the sun, the spiritual essence of our being. So that ego can fall off in many ways. It can fall off through meditation. It can fall off by taking part in a righteous war. How? That I am so much identified with an ideal for the righteous reason that I am ready even to relinquish my life, sacrifice my life. So what happens? The ego falls off immediately. You don't need years of spiritual practice. Just with a single act which entails that your own suffering or even your own annihilation as per the physical existence is concerned, it can immediately give you a spiritual evolution. The more the ego falls off, the more you get identified with the essence of your being. So this, even in the spiritual sense, by not relinquishing your swadharma, by taking the help of your swadharma so that it can easily lead you to spiritual emancipation. You don't have to relinquish your swabhava, your swadharma for spiritual emancipation. If you follow it with a proper orientation, this itself can lead to the spiritual emancipation. So from the point of swadharma also, you will find that your resolution to retreat from this war is not justified. And again, from the standpoint of reputation, sometimes we think that I don't need reputation. But when the reputation is gone, you find that how miserable the life is. In this life, so many things we say we don't need, but we don't understand. It's just they say that we can understand the value of our tooth, of our teeth, only when it has fallen. As long as it is there, so we don't realize. So when we are having fame, wealth, reputation, we may think we don't need it. But when it is gone, then we feel how miserable the life is. As long as we have not sufficiently evolved, when we have spiritually evolved, then all those things doesn't matter. But as long as we have not evolved, we may think that it is not required. But when it is not there, we feel as if our existence is of no use. So even from the standpoint of reputation, you should fight. So just see, Krishna is in so many ways trying to bring that grit, that resilience in Arjuna, so that he can stand up and face the war. So what he's saying, avachya vadangscha bahun, vadishyanti tavahita, nindantastava samarthyam, tata dukkhataram nakim. When you find that they are blaming you for reasons which are not true, you might feel that it is out of your compassion. It is because of your love for your kith and kin, you have renounced the war. From the bottom of your heart, you know that. But the others will say you are a coward. And that can be really very extremely torturing for your psyche, for your psychological well-being. And that's how that loss of reputation can be extremely tormenting. As in the present days, the Warren Buffett says that it takes 20 years to build a reputation, but 5 minutes to ruin it. If you think about that, you will do things differently. And immediately, just with a small act, that everyone in the world in those days knew that Arjuna is the greatest warrior. No one is comparable to him. But the moment he retreats, in 5 minutes it's gone. Everything is gone. Can you deal with it? With that type of disrepute? Can you deal with it? So from various ways we are finding Arjuna, Krishna is trying to bring back that strength, is trying to encourage Arjuna to fight. So now still again that another doubt is there. That I agree that the soul is imperishable, but does it justify killing for selfish reasons? That now God is saying that the soul is something indestructible, but does it in any way justify the killing for selfish reasons? We find that, when we read this Advaitic ideas, this Vedanta for the first time, we may develop so many wrong notions. We can relate it even in the life of Sri Ramakrishna, when the young disciples were around Ramakrishna. Their life was being guided by Ramakrishna. We find that one of the young disciples of Ramakrishna, monastic disciple, who later became Swami Abhedananda, he was catching fish as a young boy. And seeing that Ramakrishna was with pain, he told, it's just luring an animal and killing it. It's extreme, it's an act of cruelty. You're luring it with food and actually you're trapping it and killing it. It's an act of cruelty. And then Abhedananda, the young Abhedananda, Kali Maharaj, that time, he was a young boy. He has read Advaita Vedanta. He told, no one is being killed. So just see that the same the scripture, if we don't have the proper attitude, it can lead us to a very wrong way of understanding. So you may say, why it is wrong way of understanding? Isn't it correct? You say that the soul is something which is indestructible. Then even if when I'm fishing, am I killing anyone? So just see, the cruelty can be justified with your Vedanta. So to answer this question, if you really think of this Bhagavad Gita very intently, you will find that there will arise situations where there is a gap of understanding. But Bhagavan has answered them all. He knows the human mind, how it can constantly trick us, fool us. So now, to answer this question, Sri Krishna will be introducing the topic of Karma Yoga. That self is indestructible, that I understand. But now you are asking me to go and attend this war, or take part in this war. I know I have sufficient strength to win this war. And then for winning the war, what will result? My relatives will die. I will enjoy the kingdom. And that kingdom I will be enjoying, which all this enjoyment is as if smeared with the blood of my relatives. In what way that your idea that the self is indestructible can be justified with this selfish act? So here Krishna now introduced the topic of Karma Yoga. So in this chapter, he's speaking of Karma Yoga, where he's speaking of doing the act without the motivation for selfish gains. So it won't make it very clear. So when we study the third and the fourth chapter, the idea of yajna will come. That has to be related to the Karma Yoga. What's the idea of yajna? In the third chapter, one sloka will come. Saha yajna praja srishtva purovacha prajaprati. The Lord is beyond any want. He is eternal. He is in his eternal presence. But for what reason we don't know, when this creation is projected from him, there is a rhythm, there is a law in that creation. That Om is the ultimate reality, which finds expression as Rim, as the Shakti. That the entire universe is the expression of energy, of Shakti. That ultimate reality is finding expression as that. But that Shakti again is not chaotic. It follows certain principles. So in our so-called, like in the physical world, wherever you go in the universe, there's the gravitational law is universal. The electromagnetic laws are the universal laws. What is applicable here is applicable anywhere. That's why Einstein, how nicely has indicated that fact, that the most incomprehensible fact of the universe is that it is comprehensible. That I, as a human being, such a small creature crawling on this earth, I can decipher the mysteries of nature. Such a huge universe, where it has started, where it's end, I don't know. But I can, with exact precision, send a satellite on the, it can go and soft land on Mars. Not only that, this is like a Land Rover. It will be moving around in the Mars, sending me pictures. How this precise calculation is possible, and that for a human being who is like just a small worm crawling on this earth, how he could do this? He has made as if the mysteries of the universe comprehensible. Is because the entire universe is guided by certain laws. What is applicable here is applicable there too. That's why I can calculate the exact gravitational force and enable the satellite to do soft landing there. So this universality, this the ultimate reality which has found expression as this universe, and it is finding expression through the laws. Just the laws which we cannot transcend, break in the physical world, the same laws we cannot break even in the moral world. In our so-called, as per the psyche of any being is concerned, we used to say that the genes is selfish, but now with the advancement of the science, we are finding that the genes is not selfish as such. It actually cooperates. They synergize. It's a win-win situation. I cooperate with you, you cooperate with me, and that way we overcome all the limitations. And that's the idea of yajna. In a limited sense, the idea of yajna is I offer some oblations in the fire. The fire is the mouth for the gods. It takes that oblations and it reaches the Varuna Devata, the other personifications of nature. Why we have to please them? So that they give us rain in bounty. We can have good crops. So it's a question of give and take. So that limited idea of give and take in the yajna has to be expanded in the entire universe as the law of interdependence in the entire universe. In the Buddhism, the idea of this interdependence is being spoken of in Bhagavad Gita as yajna. So karma yoga, what it speaks of, that do all your actions knowing well that God has created me with that concept of yajna, the saha yajna praja srishtva. It is within me. So for the sustenance of nature, for the sustenance of God's creation, I am just an instrument. There is no question of doer and enjoyer. I am not the doer. I am not the enjoyer. Lord has planned the universe. When a child is born, the mother invariably feels love for the child, whether it is a tiger or it's a lion or it's a crocodile or it's a human being, how ferocious an animal may be, it's always having a love for the child. From where that love came? Is it something for which the mother can take the credit? No, it was inbuilt. When we feel some sympathy for a poor person, a beggar, from where that sympathy has evolved? Can you say it is I who have developed that sympathy? It was something natural. With seeing a person suffering, that sympathy wells. So they say that our genes are, the genes itself are empathetic. They are all this empathy is something within us. God has created that way. So we are not the doer. Lord is taking care of his creation through us. It is he who is the doer. And either if we are not the doer, how can we be the enjoyer? So we, with that wrong notion of karta and bhokta, suffer in this world. If we know that as per the past actions, this body has been born, it has its natural tendencies, and with that, Lord has made me the instrument to take care of some part of a group activity. The entire universe is a huge group work. I cannot take care of everything. As per my nature, God has allotted me certain duty, which I have to do. It is he who is doing through me. And the results are his only. So here comes the idea of karma yoga. So in this battle, if you just see the cause of the battle, that it at each and every state, Bhagavan himself has tried to avert the battle. And when at last it was in no way possible, the war was the only way to bring back the balance in this world, that all this, if you just try to find out what is good and bad in this world in a very simple way, you can find out. This paropakara punyaya papaya parapirana. Whenever you're trying to relate to this world through synergy, that alone speaks of goodness, nothing else. And whenever you are trying to exploit the world for your own pleasures, that is sin. That's a simple equation. The paropokara punyaya papaya parapirana. And behind it, again, that idea of interdependence is there. So with that, the Lord has allotted us certain duty. So you as a Kshatriya, your natural tendencies have made you to be born in this situation, and now the Lord is taking the help of you, has made you the instrument to establish religion again in the world, where in the name of power, the exploitation was prevailing. That the Pandavas wanted just 5 villages. That also was not allotted. That a king was who is there to take care of the subject. Now, for his own selfish wealth and for his selfish power, he's exploiting others. And that exploitation has to be stopped. So again, bring back the balance. So it is the Lord. It is not that Arjuna is going to enjoy the kingdom after winning the war. Just change the attitude. The Lord has his own way of bringing the balance back to the earth. In the COVID time, we have experienced that, how he brings back the balance, how he changes us, our awareness, how that we go on committing mistakes, which has resulted in the present global warming, climate change. And Lord has his own ways to bring us back again to the balance. He's doing his duty. You are just an instrument. Take part in it without the idea of sukha dukkha, without the equanimity. And then the same war, which you were finding something which is something, an act of cruelty, is horrendous, it will find its meaning. And that's how he starts, introduces the karma yoga. Sukhe dukhe, in the 38th sloka we found. Sukhe dukhe samakritva. Labha labho jaya jayo. Tato yudhyaya yujyasya naiva papam avapsasi. So nothing, that no taint can touch you. No sin can touch you. If with that equanimity, knowing yourself to be the divine worker, the Lord is working through you, knowing that it is always, whether we know it or not, he is working through us. In Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, there is a wonderful sloka, mantra. What it says, that as long as we don't realize our spiritual essence, the Lord is using us just the way we use our cattle for our own purpose. You domesticate our cattle. In the olden days, the ox were used for cultivating your land. The bullocks were used. We use the cattle. The horse is used for the transport. So the Lord uses us as long as we are not aware of the real self. The once you become aware of it, this body is still being used, but you know that there's a divine purpose, and you are no more the cattle. You just become a companion in the divine plan. The Lord is playing the eternal game. I am his companion. So these are the subtle ideas by which we have to correct our attitudes. This attitudinal correction speaks of spirituality, nothing else. Not to change the way of life, that just to change the way of life, renounce everything and retreat from the life. That doesn't entail spirituality. In what situation of life we have been placed by the Lord. It is the Lord who has placed us in particular situations of life, knowing very well, I take care, I seek not, avoid not. And go on with the life, with that detached, equanimous attitude. And that entails in our spiritual evolution. So this concept of karma yoga, the Bhagavan now starts to bring a coherence between these two ideas, that the self is something imperishable. But the question comes, how it in any way justifies my act of cruelty? Yes, Bhagavan says it's an act of cruelty if you're really thinking of enjoying the kingdom after defeating them. But if you are thinking that it's just not for enjoying the kingdom, It's just to do the divine's work, the plan. The divine, the God Krishna himself was trying to bring the balance without war, through peace. It never worked in any way. Repeatedly it failed. And now the war is inevitable, for which God wants me to be the instrument. And I am just the instrument. I'm not bothered about the pains it's going to inflict on me because of killing the kith and kin. When I kill my kith and kin, it of course is going to entail in my suffering. I am not that cruel being who is not in way affected, and that's the reason I was going away. It's going to affect you, but transcend that. That suffering will be there. But the spiritual life is not something to, what they say, that to make us unaware of the things. It's not like that anesthesia. It's not like anesthesia, that when you have to be operated, the anesthetic effect, just what happens, you are not aware of your body at all. It's not, the spirituality is not anesthesia, that I don't in any way feel the pains and the joys of life. They are there, but I have become a witness that the body mind as an instrument going through it, I am in no way affected by it. It is serving the divine purpose. I am just the one who is observing it. So now you can justify your act once you have changed your attitude, and then it can easily be linked with that imperishable self, that I'm going through all this, and after all, the self is imperishable. The Lord is just playing his game for bringing us back from the ignorance to again get established in that self. He is playing his game in varied ways through each and every one of us as per our temperament. So he is the one who is the eternal player. I am just the instrument. I'm just in the pen in the hand of the divine. It is he who is writing the script of my life. It's not me. The pen can never claim to be the author of the book. It's the author who is holding the pen. He's the author. So God is the author of life. I am just the pen. So with that idea, the karma yoga, the concept of karma yoga will be established, which alone can give us that equanimity. And with that equanimity, we can transcend the so-called, all the evils of life. And not only that, we can even transcend this process of transmigration. That's the thing which again he will be describing in the succeeding slokas. So this synopsis of the Bhagavad Gita from the remaining part, we have just dealt with till the 49th sloka, from the 50th sloka till the last 72. It will need another one more class. So we will continue with that, and then we will proceed to the third chapter. But most probably just before Durga Puja, just let me make an announcement before I stop today's class, that we will of course let everyone know through the email also, that we are going through some renovation works. So the class from next Sunday till Durga Puja have to be cancelled. Most probably we will have one more class on Thursday, the class on Mundaka Upanishad. And after that, all the classes will remain cancelled from 16th September onwards till the 2nd of October. The classes will remain cancelled because we are going through some renovation in the center. So we won't be in a position to hold the classes. And on 3rd October, we are going to celebrate Durga Puja in our center. It's not that we will be some hiring hall. Here in our center itself, we will be celebrating the Durga Puja. Till then, the classes will be just suspended. And after Durga Puja, again, the regular classes will start. So and then we will again continue with the remaining portion of our this synopsis of the second chapter of Bhagavad Gita before we proceed to the next chapter. So with this, we conclude our discussion today. Thank you all. Namaskar.